Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, this is a very important session from a customer experience perspective. And I believe that, from a customer experience, right from the pervasiveness of customers, the omni-channel reach out, and in terms of the availability of, what your systems are. And most importantly, I think you also heard in the earlier sessions on empathy, how you can actually empathize with the customer and eventually leading to loyalty. So I think this is a very important piece from a customer experience perspective. Most of them, you debate between operational efficiency versus, your quality of experience for that customer. And there's a paradox, right? If I were to focus on one of them, like quality, I'm going to eat up a lot of cost. So essentially the efficiency comes down. Or if I try to make things more efficient, then the quality of experience have typically dropped. So if you have seen like the recent some Forbes report where it said that, I can use some efficiency and automation to actually improve the customer experience. But these things have changed a lot, especially with the advent of a lot of technologies, especially AI and analytics. Things have changed. There's a lot more capabilities that you can enable in the process. So what we believe is, from a customer experience perspective, this whole issue of how do we manage this paradox actually becomes extremely important. So in order to actually open up this discussion, I would like each one of the panelists. In fact, we have a good mix between retail and though Arpit calls himself as a greedy games, which is actually nothing to do with games. I understand it's more to do with ads and the reach to customers, and from edtech as well. So we have a very diverse panel from different industries, so you can actually learn from them. And I suppose that this session would be engaging for all of you to kind of learn, and especially if you're a startup, in terms of how much investments and what is the ROI that you can look at, especially when you're looking at technologies like AI and analytics. So I would request the panel, maybe start with you, Anand, just to kind of give a quick intro about this, then maybe some opening remarks, and then we'll go through one by one, and then we will come through a Q&A.
Sure. Thank you for having me here, by the way. And I'm Anand. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Simply Learn. What we do is live mentor-driven digital training globally. We give or take every year we enroll about 150,000 global learners on our paid programs, and we have about, give or take, 6 to 7 million free learners that are on a platform at any point of time. We work with close to 157 countries, learners from 157 countries today, and with some of the largest corporations today in terms of upskilling in areas such as AI, data science, data analytics, coding, cloud, DevOps, you name it, right? Anything digital in that sense. Very excited about this topic. I think AI and Gen AI specifically is a very hot topic right now. Looking forward to the debate.
Hi, thanks for having me on the panel as well. I'm Arpit. I work in the capacity of CTO at Greedy Game. Although, like Sai mentioned, everybody presumes we are a game development company. We actually help mobile apps and games to scale on their user acquisition strategies, on their monetization strategies and data insights. We've been doing this for the past 10 and a half years now. So, an old startup that particular way, and we've been running it profitably for the past 4 years. Games in general are a global phenomena, so we do have audience everywhere in the world, and glad to be here.
Thanks a lot for having me. Myself, Vivek Pariyar. I had engineering at Purple. So Purple is a beauty and a cosmetic company. So our objective is to make beauty affordable for everybody and every Indian. And we call ourselves more tech-first beauty company.
Yeah, so thanks everyone. So basically I would like to start off with the technology front, and we look at the multimodal inputs, in terms of, speech and videos and images, and, so there's so many technology out there. So when you look at that and adopting those multimodal technologies, how do you actually balance between using the technology versus losing human touch in terms of, especially maybe I think Anand will talk about, maybe you can discuss on learning perspective first.
So I think, maybe I'll try to give sort of a framework of what we do. And let me just ask a quick question. AI, Gen AI, considering for technology, how many folks here in the audience? Yes, no? Nobody? Okay, some people. Okay. Well, I was expecting a larger crowd to actually say yes. But the thought process is when you talk to folks like people here on the stage, right, and folks who are in technology, all of them will say that AI is a big priority for us. We're going to do some proof of concept, something is going to happen. And actually, that's quite worrisome, actually, right? So I think I'll take a step back and answer the question you're asking, which is how should we think about using AI or Gen AI in any given platform? And I'll share what Simply Learn has done. And it doesn't have to be the way that you might consider that, but that's how we do it. So the first thing I think that any company needs to think about is what does our brand stand for? And what does our customer come to us for? And I'll give you a very specific example with Simply Learn. We are not a video learning platform where you just come and consume videos and then you go do something after that, come back and watch a video. We have mentors, right? Experts like folks here that are donating time on the platform and teaching people from life experiences. So when someone comes to Simply Learn and they think Simply Learn is a brand, they're saying, look, I'm going to interact with absolute top class mentors. So the first question is, what's your brand stand for? And is it okay for me to suddenly put an AI speech recognition solution there or a virtual avatar, in fact? And for us, at least for that part of it, the answer is absolutely resounding no today, right? But once you've done that sort of first level question, I think there's a second level that you do. Now, even within the brand that we stand for, which is live and human touch, there are things that the learner or the customer absolutely thinks is part of the core learning, and the rest of it is, well, they don't care, right? So if you take a very specific example with us, the live class experience today, it's still with mentors, still with coaches, still with people who are absolutely at the top of the game. They're, of course, augmented with a lot of data analytics. They have their own assistant. They have a lot of things going on from a data perspective, but we are not touching that experience, right? But at the same time, the kind of innovations that we are thinking about is in the area where the learner actually would be delighted. And what are those things? We are trying to build a virtual assistant when the learner does not have the mentor. So they have a question on, look, I want to check in this code. I don't know how to use Git. I don't know how to use Copilot. Tell me about it. Now, virtual assistant comes at 1 a.m. in the night when, frankly, the mentor is not available and helps them. That's possible. You can do that. Project assessments. People submit project assessments. I can't have an Arpit coming in and, code reviewing every single line of code for 250,000 coders, right? So this is where, again, we have built sort of an AI-driven, actually Gen AI-driven sort of approach where the code is actually analyzed and then it gives back very specific scores and specific things that help the learner actually get better at coding, right? So you've got to split the problem space into what will I not affect in terms of the brand promise I made to the learners and what are the kind of things that the learner is very comfortable within that brand promise, right? And then there you start experimenting, running proof of concepts. Then of course you scale it over time. The only caveat I will say is that as AI matures, this framework you built becomes obsolete very quickly, right? So something we do is every 3 to 6 months we revisit this framework and look at, is our understanding of what AI can do today still relevant as it was 6 months back, or has something been upgraded? It might be that in a year we're talking here and I have a virtual avatar teaching a class as well, right? So today I'm not ready to do that, but in a year the technology might have matured for us to do that. So that's maybe in very, very simple layman terms, the way I think of using any technology. Gen AI or AI is not any different from that. So that's one part of the equation. The second part of the equation is, this is for customer-facing applications, right? Internal applications, frankly, go crazy. Make sure that the value is there. I think we were talking before this, and there were some great examples you shared, where I think the efficiency you can unlock in terms of applying AI and getting cost savings or speed and efficiency, that's basically unlimited, right? And there, I think there's a real beautiful petri dish for you to go play around, and it doesn't affect the customer in a negative way. So you've got absolute freedom there.
Right. Yeah, thanks a lot, Anand. Actually, that in terms of using AI and actually scaling that up, I think would be the key. And I think you also mentioned about the obsolescence that happens very fast. So essentially, maybe Arpit, you can kind of share your experience from investments perspective. Like how do I get an ROI? How do I compute an ROI? Especially for if I'm a startup and I want to really invest in something on AI. And I don't know, maybe the morning sessions also you must have seen the cost of running some of these is so high. It's phenomenally high, especially Gen AI, right? So how do you actually look at an ROI and how do you compute this, especially when you're trying to introduce such technologies in the space?
Right. So I'll probably break this problem with a bit more context. When you look at specifically the gaming industry, gaming, like I mentioned, it's a more global phenomena, right? So you have different layers where there's obviously hardcore engineering that comes in, and you have use cases like a co-pilot come in, and you can optimize on your developer productivity and other tools like Anand just mentioned. But there are other things that come in, like where a game designer actually designs a particular level, or your data team actually tries to analyze what the patterns of players are, where are they dropping off in a game, right? And then I think from a gaming perspective, AI has been used for a very long time. Like, everybody has played video games and they've played it against a non-human, right? Against NPCs and other matchmaking that has happened with AI bots. So gaming in general is very quick to adopt to changes and try new things out, and extremely opinionated about technology as well. So here it becomes difficult because game developers and people in this industry would chase behind every new shining car, thinking that, okay, where I could drive some value out. I think from a perspective of ROI, sorry. So from a perspective of ROI, probably the core values and the fundamentals from the game side still remain the same. That are the same for any app. Like, you are looking for your lifetime value of your customer. You're looking for your retention values that are there. What's your customer acquisition cost? Those pillars still remain the same. Whatever your adoption of AI, whether it's Gen AI, whether it's fraud analytics, whether it's user understanding or user behavior mapping, all of those should actually have an incremental value to these core metrics in place, right? Like Anand mentioned again, you can't just have a blind use case in saying that, okay, because this is a cool new shiny thing, I'll just do it and then probably hope for the best that it has an impact on these metrics. You need to have the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, thanks, Sarpit. So Vivek, maybe you can just add on to some of the things, especially from an ROI perspective. And you could also touch upon something around the hyper-personalization that you are actually looking at from a AI perspective. Because in your industry, essentially, you have to be more closer to the customer, and the reactions are very, very high and very, very fast. Right? So how do you actually look at it? You probably both these questions, if you could just touch upon it.
For us, it's very important. The cost is one of the very biggest key lever to really see where my cost is going, because everything for us is just a cost per order, right? If person is coming and doing or searching something, and then we end up delivering that particular order that consumer try to order it, right? So everything is a cost to us, right? And costs become very sensitive. But what happens when the moment we try to optimize all these solutions that we talk about, be it providing the right kind of recommendation so user can purchase any product on a very shorter period of time, and then provide. And for me, consumer is just not the consumer is coming to my platform and purchasing the goods, right? For me, the consumer is also the people working in the warehouse, the people from the logistics, the people also who are utilizing my system to get the best out of, to showcase something to consumer, right? So the ecosystem for the tech team as a consumer relies on very different bucket, right? So for me, it is very important. I should provide some ROI in terms of efficiency, right? And then put the efficacy on top of it. The moment I provide that, then these costs it never come to the picture, because what is happening with that similar set of folks with similar set of assets, I am delivering more, and that automatically definitely give me a good amount of boost to do more, to cater my consumer and give them better experience, right? So that is something there's no doubt about it. We should invest in it or not. It is very important how we want to invest it. And it's very important. AI is just not a silver bullet, right? We want to first understand what we are gonna solve for my consumer. As I told you, like for a technology, a very different people might act as a consumer for you, right? And you want to solve a very specific use case for them, and then automatically start becoming a ROI for you, right? So that's what we have a very, very important principle to work on, and that is really working well for us.
And if I can just add maybe a couple things, I think I cannot agree more. I think a lot of people think that there's this heavy hammer that is available. I can just use that hammer everywhere. And I think, frankly, 90% of the problems just need a data analytics engine and gives you just data that you can use. So I think I want to do +1 on everything you just said there.
And I think on top of it, when people say hyper-personalization, right? So everybody using, like, if you try to see any company in the world, right? They say, okay, we also do the recommendation, we also do the AI, we also do the ML, right? But the problem is, what you're trying to sell to the consumer Consumer don't want that. This is what your model thinks, that your consumer might want to purchase this. You say, okay, because you purchased this in your past session, that's why you are going to purchase this again, right? This is not the case. And the beauty industry is very, very important that we want to understand what my consumer is doing, right? So what happened in my sense, we first invested very heavily on my data platform. And that data is just not about from the in-app behavior that we're collecting from the consumer. We also collecting a lot more information from the, for the user from the outside intent that we have, right? We collect them, we curate them on real time, and on top of it, we use that information, that data, to understand is it consumers coming to purchase for that particular brand, for category, for intent, for benefit, or some issues they are facing. We use that and create a bucket for them. Okay, this is what my consumers might be looking. I want to show all these products to them, right? And believe me, like, the moment we started working towards our hyper-personalization, every quarter we are seeing 20% uplift in my MAU to get more conversion on top of it, right? So that this is a number that I'm talking about from my last sale. And the amount of data that we're ingesting for every day is like 330 million events in a day, right? So the cost is already defining what we can do for my consumer, right? And then the hyper-personalization also talks about how we can definitely communicate to my consumer in a very right manner. You just come to my platform and you just go back to make some decision. It doesn't mean that then I start pushing a lot more all this communication in very vague manner. Okay, because you see this, I want to purchase this. No, this is wrong. From that, we try to personalize the very first message, communication, whatever it is, and then create that particular a very important message that can convert my consumer to the platform, right? So this is what we are doing right now. And from CRM to personalization, everything coming end to end. The moment somebody lands to that platform, I know, okay, this because of the user chooses this PN, or even coming from the Facebook, from my analytics systems, I know what this person is definitely coming from. For what? For what cause? Just showcase that. Just change the whole homepage for that specific use case itself, right? So automatically consumer try to discover more and then provide a lot more feedback as well, right? So this is something, the way we are trying to put a lot more hyper-personalization.
Sure, yeah. Great, yeah, thanks Vivek. I think maybe I would like Anand also to add anything on the hyper-personalization front from a learning perspective, because I think you touched upon also some of the real-time analytics and, you know, how do you quickly get a feedback and say that, hey, you know what, maybe this probably are the courses that would be more important for you, or I mean, whatever. I mean, do you have those kind of...
Yeah, I think we have basically two very large use cases in terms of hyper-personalization. One is what you just talked about. I've taken one course with Simply Learn. What's the most logical next step for me, right? The second actually is hyper-personalization of the learning experience itself, right? And I think, to be very candid, I think if somebody solves that problem, you've just built a multi-billion-dollar education company. So I'll be the first one to tell you that we haven't solved that problem 100% yet. I think the first one is a little more, you know, I would say easier to do because a lot of companies are doing that today. The second one, I think, is a very, very difficult problem to solve. And I won't waste a whole lot of time on the first one because I think, you know, like cosmetics is similar. The problem is exactly the same. But, you know, the hyper-personalization of learning, we are doing some experiments. What we're trying to figure out is, are there learner types that come on the platform that like to consume content a different way? We are one of the only full-service education providers, by the way. We have async content, project-based learning, and live. And so we are actually experimenting with a little bit of, if you are one of those learners that come in and say, I don't have time, I need to go fast, I don't have time to actually attend this session, even though I want to listen to this mentor, is there a different path you can take, and can you adapt your way through that path? Or if you're somebody who's really falling behind, can we give augmented mentoring sessions to them? But the proof is yet to come. I think we've just started on that journey right now. Hopefully in a year or so, we'll be in a place where hopefully we're on the stage and I can tell you that the results have come and we've made it there. So the journey's on.
Great, yeah. Thanks, Anand. So Arpit, maybe I'll ask you regarding the, you know, you work with multiple platforms and stuff too, right?
Sure.
So you are actually kind of an integration of sorts.
Yeah.
And if you use AI and analytics in this space, and you're trying to kind of collate information from so many places and kind of present that, what are the kind of challenges that you face from a technology perspective? Can you just throw some light on that?
Absolutely. So purely from the standpoint of data, I think this was covered by panels earlier as well, that it's a massive cost. Like to generate an LLM like OpenAI has. We were discussing earlier, it costs 100 million. There has to be real viable commercial use cases. Indian startups in general are more cost effective. And then the recent buzz in the industry is also that everybody is pushing towards profitability, right? So data is definitely, in the size and the massive amount of data that you have to process comes with a cost, and that's a big challenge. Specifically talking about the gaming industry, there are real use cases out there for near real-time performance. So for example, if you talk about a big RMG player, the use case could range from fraud detection, anybody who's cheating on a poker game or any other Dream 11 team making fantasy sports sort of apps, to something as broad as, oh, what's my forecast of players in this particular event, how many events or how many users are going to come in, and have a traffic analysis that, okay, I need to spin up more servers and stuff like that. So I want to reiterate one of the points that Anand had earlier mentioned, that to hammer every problem is a nail, right? We should not probably use Gen AI or any sort of AI in that particular context. You need to really, really understand what is the problem that you are dealing with. Whether you can afford seconds of latency, in a chatbot, true. Whether you can afford seconds of latency while deciding which ad to serve to a particular game, the answer is no, right? So you have to design systems accordingly. A lot of it is just statistics, actually, at the end of the day. You really have to use what are the tools that are available. And then from the overall management perspective of all this, it has to, at the end of the day, provide a value to the customer. What a lot of people actually don't work enough on is what's the intent, like Vivek earlier mentioned, right? That you really have to map the user journey and you have to see what's the intent of the customer and then build things out. Nobody has a perfect recommendation engine, nobody has a perfect growth path. But to a large degree, if you can understand your users yourself, that would really help you to sort of bring down the costs, bring down the other things and other challenges associated with the problems that you're facing, and try to solve for a small bit, rather than solving in a very, very generic and a general manner.
Right, yeah, thanks, Arpit. I probably throw a curveball on you, Vivek, because you deal with beauty, fashion, and so there's a lot of personal information that you would be collecting for your AI and analytics, right? So are you, worried, I would say, in some sense, or there's a privacy policy of India. I mean, of course, GDPR is like whatever everybody talks about, but the Indian privacy policy is kind of there. And are you getting impacted by those kind of things, or how do you actually face those challenges in that space?
To be very frank, if we talk, I try to give a little bit glimpse what DPDP say about it. If you have a certain number of consumer data, in certain number, right, you fall into that particular category. And for a company like us, it's automatically into that category. Before DPDP, we also started worrying about my data, because what happened, like, it's just not about any breach can also give you a very bad marketing or bad publicity within a consumer base, right? And that no company wants to be in that position. So there's already a lot more things that we have started doing to make sure that we already started securing who can access my data. And to be very frank, for the AI/ML, I don't need a lot more personal information for the consumer. Because the way algorithms or the training works, they don't need actual data about the consumer, they need an even data about the consumer, right? So that's how we just bifurcate the PI information from the consumer perspective, right? And everything happening on a very machine language. So if you try to take that data from me as well, I'm not worried, because nobody can understand it. You might able to create a model, which is good for me, but this is a problem, and we already started working on it. DPDP is already here, and I think it's a good sense for us as well. We started a little bit earlier, and because of that, we are able to in a very good position right now to really complete the whole process of securing information for my consumer within a month or two.
Sure, yeah. Thanks a lot, Vivek. I'll open up for questions if there are any from the audience before we go through a round of closing remarks from the panelists. Are there any questions from the panel, for the panel that you guys have?
Right.
Okay.
On
right.
the other side, if you have any questions, please shoot if you have. Otherwise,
okay.
I'll
continue on a couple of more things. So maybe you'll just have some closing remarks from all of you. I mean, so I think it was a great session in terms of understanding what are the things of AI, what it can do, and I think from an ROI perspective also it was good to understand, what we should be looking at before we look at truly from an ROI. And I think Vivek touched upon the privacy aspects as well, because that's another very important piece, especially when we are working on AI and analytics. I think you might actually see one bad press and then your all the loyalty and everything goes down the drain. So you can't really have a single mistake, right? Especially in such kind of use of such kind of technologies. So we'll just have some quick closing remarks. Maybe Anand, we can start with you. And
So I think my just final view is that it's a very exciting time to be in right now. And while I said a hammer, like you said, for a hammer everything is a nail, I'll say the reverse as well. There are so many use cases that are coming up that we haven't imagined yet. And so when people ask me, is AI here to take jobs away? My absolute violent answer to that is no. It might take roles away, specific roles, but the amount of opportunity that is in front of us is so exciting. I don't know if you all have tried this software called Synthesia.ai or seen what Sora.ai is doing. And we don't even know how those are going to be used in the market today. These are just ideas out there where Synthesia.ai, I can take a picture of the gentleman over here and I can create a video learning class where I give it a script and it feels like the gentleman here is actually teaching the class live, right? So this is path-breaking application. We have to still think, how do you use that? Sora.ai, you can just create a simple text prompt and it creates a real-life video of about a minute or two. And now suddenly you can create all these movies and things that you haven't even thought of. So just closing remarks, while on one side, I think all of us here agree, ROI, customer orientation, all of that matters. The other part I think is it's the most exciting time that at least personally I've seen in technology. I think the applications are almost unbounded. And in the next 1 or 2 years, the level of innovation is going to be much faster than anything we've seen so far.
Yeah, so I'm probably in the same boat here. The kind of rate of experimentation that we see now come up, and we were talking earlier about how we have creative copies being refreshed within 17 times in a sales, or in our use case we've had A/B tests being performed with 800 odd creatives over a matter of seconds, right? In order to figure out which is the best creative that's working for an app or not. So it just compounds on the scale at which you can experiment, and the scale of experimentation would define how quickly can you reach to the objective that you've set for. So at least in the immediate short term, I see that as a really exciting problem. And I think there's every time you open your Twitter or something else, you have something new that's coming up, right? So it's very difficult to sort of see where it will actually head to, but definitely an interesting time to sort of be onboarded with this and try it out for yourself.
Yeah, I think I resonate with both of you guys. These are very exciting times. Previously, what used to take 5 years, now these innovations are happening in a year. Now that are already changing down to 6 months. And I think now the ball in our court as the leaders, how we want to use it. And it's always boils down, we want to just look for the basics, right? What we are trying to solve for my consumer. And the consumer is just not who is just sitting somewhere. It could be sitting in front of you. It could be the human you're talking to. So if you are able to solve that with that particular use case in your mind, I think that can do the wonders. And be simple in that. Don't try to just bang your head on it.
great, excellent. Thanks for the whole panel. I think predominantly, I think everybody agrees that the technology is way ahead of us, and there's lots of possibility. As a company, if you probably don't have an AI strategy or a Gen AI strategy, you probably would be left back. Of course, Gen AI is still a small kid in the block, but there are a lot of other technologies out there. I mean, AR, VR, you talk about all those, new tech that's out there. So how do you ensure customer loyalty using this tech and making sure that you hold on to them, but at the same time be extremely responsible to make sure that one small misstep and actually you probably would go down a different route. So with that I would close the the panel, and thanks everyone for being part of the session, and hopefully you could learn something from this. Thanks.